All right, well, howdy and good morning. We are Team 8. I'm Annalie, this is Morgan, Blaine, and Cole. You guys can't see him, but he's over there in the corner. But yeah, we're Team 8, and our client is Engedi Vineyard. So just a brief description of our project. Like I said, we're working with Engedi Vineyard, and our client is currently located in Cameron, Texas. It's a family-owned and operated vineyard under the management of Pat Hill, who is our contact for the vineyard. So basically, we are working with our client, figuring out a way of repurposing grape pomace. Right now, the client is currently using grape pomace as a hog feed for the hogs that they have on property, which of course right now to them it's at a low cost, but we will talk further as to where we come in to hopefully use that pomace for something else. Of course, there's other potential uses that we have found. Pomace is high in dietary fibers, but it is also can be used in fertilizer. Our goal right now is to evaluate and analyze all the possible uses of grape pomace and potentially have our client profit from those solutions. So in our literature review, we learned what exactly is grape pomace. Grape pomace makes up a quarter of the weight of a grape, and the pomace itself, or what's considered pomace, is the skin, the seed, and the pulp of the grape after it's been pressed in the winemaking process. It is an organic byproduct, and most of the time, vineyards will consider it as a way of completing its cycle, using this organic byproduct and putting it back into the vineyard itself as a type of cultivation for the soil that the vineyard is being grown on. So, of course, one of those ways is fertilizer. You can't just go out and throw the grape pomace onto the soil. That's not exactly how it works. That'd be cool if it was, but it's not. The first step is to compost pomace, and we found through our research that chicken droppings is a way of possibly mixing with the composted pomace, and that is one way we have learned that it could be potential for our clients to possibly sell the composted fertilizer to other vineyards around, and of course use for themselves. The biological makeup and nutritional benefits of the pomace, of course, offers other uses. One that we found was grapeseed oil, but another that in our research I found pretty intriguing was a potential quote-unquote second wine. The sugars in grape pomace offer the potential of kind of reviving the pomace to create a sort of second weaker wine because it's not raisined and dried. It can be, or it's squeezed, my bad. It can potentially, like I said, be reused and profited from that as well. So now Morgan is going to speak on standards and regulations.
Right, so initially, what we're looking at here, what we've identified so far in the standards and regulations section, is that we've identified that the Food and Drug Administration and OSHA are our two regulatory bodies that we need to consider in this project. We haven't found any specific safety measures that we need to take, but the reason we need to consider these two are, like Annalie said, one of our considerations or possible solutions that we are considering here is turning it into a dietary product that we could sell. Or the second one is also a good consideration that we would need to pass by the FDA. Markets for consumption, for human consumption, in order to be labeled safe for markets, they need to be approved by the FDA. It's also a good signal to any kind of consumer that we're selling a product to. If it's FDA certified, then it's a safe product for consumption. Similarly, for OSHA considerations, really what we're looking for there is just on our client's property, any kind of storage of pomace or of hog feed or any kind of byproduct that we're going to be encountering in this situation. They need to meet OSHA regulations on that property. So again, the primary concern here is the storage of material on the Engedi Vineyard property.
So obviously, this problem is not a new issue for anybody who's producing well, really a product. There's always going to be some kind of waste that you want to turn into a novel waste product. So some of the other industries that we've noticed, and we talked with our faculty advisor, was tree bark. Actually, in the forestry industry, there was this massive waste product that they had to dispose of, and they tried to find every other way that they could find to make a profit of, and then eventually someone said, let's just bag it and sell it to homeowners at Walmart. So that thus they made a profit from this waste that nobody wanted initially. Same thing with chicken litter. You think about in the poultry industry, there's this excess waste that is never ending, and it just piles and piles and piles, and doesn't smell very good, and it's always just an issue. But then they decided, well, why don't we put it in a dump truck and sell it to farmers? And thus they created another novel product. So what we're doing here with this project is to create a novel use for the grape hummus. And it actually comes with quite a bit of health benefits and potential uses. It can be antioxidants can be extracted to potentially replace those unnatural antioxidants in condiments and perishable foods to extend their shelf life. It provides an awesome amounts of dietary fiber that can prevent cancer development, improve cardiovascular health, and actually promotes the vital microflora in the large intestine. And so because of those health benefits, a lot of other larger and small operations in this industry had decided to use it for packaged foods such as meat, beef, and sausage. They can put some of those extracts into that to extend that shelf life and improve the quality of that meat over a long period of time. Yogurt and milk products are the exact same way, and then even some dry products such as cereal. And then there's actually another product out there from vineyards and the like that can actually sell that grapeseed extract to pass on those valuable nutrients to their clients and to potential other markets that aren't just buying from the winery. Right now, the current system is used as livestock feed, which is very limited cost, and this is a very common use in this industry. Those health benefits, they can utilize those for their hogs or their cows, and really they dispose of it and they save money on feed there. And then what more recently, it's been very common that this industry has started to mix with chicken litter or other potential sources of potassium and phosphorus to return back to the soil. And then you can also, with added equipment and processing, you could potentially turn the pomace into a grapeseed oil or a flour to be used in baking uses. Blaine?
Right. So, like I said before, grape pomace and the leftover waste of wine production itself is not a unique problem just in the entire world. We consider how long the production of wine has been going on. But it is, however, unique for our client. With this client, we are being faced with matching his budget and the infrastructure of his facility. So we have to come up with unique and feasible solutions for him because of his budget and what is the equipment he has available for the production of a solution. So that brings in the uniqueness of tailoring it to him and making a solution that is worthwhile and that he can get a return on his investment. So, like I said before, there are solutions already being looked into around the world. So, a cosmetic additive for the grape pomace will be created by getting the byproduct of the grape oil. And you can do this with a separator for the seed and the pomace itself. And once the seed is separated, you would use a press to create these grape oil that you could then add to products to get the phenolic compounds and flavonoids in grape. And this is from an article, Journal of Medicinal Foods by Tsz-Yi. They note that grapeseed oil is high in phenolic compounds and flavonoids, which promote anti-aging and skin protection. So as we see more and more, the cosmetic industry is growing, trying to produce a solution for anti-aging. There is a possibility of using this grapeseed oil for that, and I think that would work out pretty well. So then after that, we have a nutritional additive. So like I said before, grape seeds and pomace have been used as antioxidants. So we're seeing a similar solution being used where they take the grape pomace, dry it with an industrial dryer, and from there you would get a milling machine to mill it into a grape flour that could be used in like any product that would need grape flour. And from there you would get the dietary additives of fiber and antioxidants. After that, we have the fertilizer component. Like I said before, the fertilizer itself from grape pomace is not complete, so we'd have to add in chicken litter as a nutritional catalyst to get the correct nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash values of the fertilizer. And from there, that can be reapplied to the vineyard to aid in production of wine. So I'm going to summarize what we've done so far and what's working, what's not working, because I think it's important to state, speed bumps along the way in a project. So up to this point, we've done background research and literature. We've had to establish contact with the Bain team, and they've done a really fantastic job of kind of putting us in the know. They've done a great job with sharing any literature reviews they found so that we could further read into them. They've done a site visit, which we have unfortunately not been able to do. So they're kind of letting us know the infrastructure and the availability of what's on the site. We have split our roles. So we're all kind of working on everything, but we have someone who's overlooking the formatting and stuff of each role. And so we have the background research, the economic analysis and the flow, and the risk involved, split that amongst everyone. We're trying to make a chart and move along in an orderly manner to get everything scheduled. From there, so I'm going to talk about what's not going right. So we're coming into this kind of late. The Bain team had worked on this since November and had like a really strong structure. And because of that, our client didn't know that we pretty much even existed. Because I feel like he's a little reluctant to work with us, seeing as he won't really contact us as much. But he adds, saying that he barely contacts the Bain team that much, according to them. So through that, it's kind of made it difficult to get a word in with him on, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, could you tell me the exact production of pomace, like how much you are producing, how much is waste, how much do you give to the hogs, which is his current removal technique of it right now. So that's kind of made it hard to do our literature and go along with flow analysis and preparing and paving the way for future papers. But we have like workarounds and efforts that we're trying to do to get around this. So in order to do this, we really contacted the Bain team a lot and kind of used them as, they say, like a liaison, because our client contacts them more than us. So we've been able to step into their meetings that they already assigned with them, which is really useful because we are able to go in and kind of ask questions and, get reiterations of what's already been said, kind of get up to speed, maybe fill in the gaps here and there. So we've been trying to join more in their meetings when available and try and contact our client more and really just share information with them a lot. So.
Right. And I'd like to just finish up by saying what we can do with those problems that we're having and how we can improve and with the efforts that we're going to do, and also the next steps of this project to battle the problems that we have with communication with our client. We have thought about potentially going in person to see the vineyard during business hours and maybe just look as onlookers from the outside. And then potentially if we see Pat, or maybe let him know that we're coming, just, nothing pushy, just to come and see it so that we can kind of bridge that gap of miscommunication. The next step as far as analysis for potential solutions and to figure out what this pomace is as a potential novel product, we really need to see the sugar content of the pomace to see if it were to be used in a potential fertilizer. The sugar content is really going to play a factor in whether it becomes a nitrogen release or a nitrogen absorber. And so once we see that factor, we'll know whether it would be detrimental biologically to the winery and the vineyard, or if it would be supplemental to that. In order to do that, the engineering team has a current analysis with one of the departments here at A&M. They've paid to have a sample of the pomace tested, and as well as looking at chicken litter as a potential mix to find the properties of phosphorus and potassium. One thing personally that I know about chicken litter is that it doesn't always give off enough nitrogen, but it does have great values of potassium and phosphorus. So having something that can add the nitrogen to supplement the ground would be really helpful and an awesome solution for the customer. And the next thing that we're going to do is the flow analysis. We're going to look at the inputs and outputs of the system. Again, I would like to see it see it in person to maybe get an overhead look of what the vineyard looks like, their operation, where this pomace is stored, and how much of it is. I'd really like to see it in person. We need to determine the amount of pomace needed for all of our potential solutions, and we need to compare those potential solutions to the current system in place and see if those hogs are going to still have something to eat, or if he needs to figure out another feeding source for them. But that's all I have, and do you have any questions?
Okay, why don't we have the peer team, Team 7? We need a couple of comments and questions or something like that from you.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start one off. So what kind of interested you guys enough within this project to choose it, to try to tackle it? What kind of brought you to it or drove you to it?
Personally, I am actually from Cameron. I'm from Mountain County, so that caught my eye, and also interested in wine and in production in general, so in agriculture. So that's what caught my eye.
Yeah, I'm not from here, but what interested me was kind of just learning the process of how taking the organic waste can be reused to profit from. I'm not very familiar with that, so this has definitely been something that has been a cool thing to read about.
Yeah, I would say what interested me in this project, what made it seem like a valuable problem I think to solve, is that it seems like a very common consulting job in the agriculture industry is, hey, I have this waste, I have this byproduct. What is one way that I can remove it and we find an additional profit from, or what's another way I can recycle it? What's just kind of looking at I guess value added towards the end of a production process. Seems like a valuable thing to learn.
Like every college student, I enjoy wine, and I thought the process itself was really interesting to get into, and I think the byproduct itself leaves a lot of room for growth and using it for something that you could potentially profit on, or you could potentially cut your expenditures on. So I found that really interesting for this project.
Another question or comment?
I have a comment and a question. I think that it was really evident that you guys did an extensive amount of research. Y'all are extremely detailed in the inputs coming into that process and the different things that potentially could be done with it, especially the fact that it could be potentially even profit bearing, not just expense cutting. So that was cool, and I think it's evident that you guys worked hard. I have a question. I know that y'all are kind of at the mercy of the Bain kids, and we're in a similar boat as far as their information goes. But I can imagine that there is a threshold of time storing that pumice. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. A threshold of time storing it, making sure that it doesn't spoil, for lack of better words. Do you guys know how it's being stored on the property now, and if there is a threshold of time that's specific?
All right, that's a great question, Cameron. Thanks. Right now, like Cole mentioned, we haven't gotten the chance to actually visit the site, which is probably one of our next steps, is to all go as a team and visit to actually see how it's stored. Definitely, that's something we can bring up with the Bain team and see if they've asked Pat that, and see if he's answered that question, or if they've asked that question, if Thomas has like kind of like a shelf life or storage life before it cannot be used for any of this possible solutions that we've found. Thank you.
To add on to that, it's from what I gauged from the meeting with Pat, it sounds as if he is not storing it or using it for any application. He's currently giving it to his hogs as a feed to cut down on cost of hog feed, because pumice has dietary benefits to it. So it sounds like there is no storage. It's kind of straight from production to feed. So
Cool. That answers my question. Thank you.
I have one more question. I thought y'all did pretty well overall. But my question is, would the potential for the pumice increase if it is further broken down or separated, i.e. like if y'all separated the seeds, would y'all have the potential to use it for something such as an alternative to beet pulp or something like that?
I think extraction definitely improves the opportunity for the pumice for use. I think that's probably not an option with this particular operation because it's smaller in nature and they don't want to have a huge capital investment. But of the other operations that I've seen that I've looked at too in the industry, they have got invested in the equipment to further extract the pumice and really gather those benefits.
Okay, good job. Thank you, peer team. If we have time, we'll come back to you all. Dr. Castillo.
Yeah, I want to commend you for having a strategy on how to deal with a client who is not interested. And this has to do with the disconnect between the two capstone classes. Should we going to address that for next semester, because it shouldn't be happening. And so I commend you for having a strategy and not just whining about it. And we cannot do anything now. And you are working with, in my experience, with one of the best engineering teams this year, and they have really. I am their advisor. But has nothing to do with me. They don't need me. They have collected the sample and they have to freeze it to answer Cameron's question. It has to be frozen, otherwise, like we just said, blame will spoil. So I don't believe he's storing the pumice. He's using it as a hot feed, and he wants a little more profit, right, on what he's doing. I want to commend you for going around. I would be interested to see what you propose as potential solutions versus what the engineering team is doing. And they have the advantage of actually getting the sample, visiting the location, and testing the sample. They have done some tests in my lab. So they have had some advantages, but that doesn't prevent from you designing something that's feasible, because you have a lot of knowledge on bioproducts, economics of that. So that would be, so overall, that's my main comment on yours. I think as a team, you have organized together very well and are addressing an important issue, which is working with a client that might not be that respected. So I'm looking forward to your potential solutions report and see what can I do. So good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. You guys are in a tough spot, and a lot of that is our fault. So I appreciate your attitude overcoming these difficulties. You know, looking on the bright side, hey, the other team went out and made the site visit and collected a lot of data, so you don't have to. Hey, that's all right. The other team is the primary point of contact with the client, so you don't have to. You just have to work with other students. So there's some goodness there, okay? So don't overlook that. So be positive about where you are. It's actually pretty realistic if there were multiple teams working with a client, that the client would be contacted by a bunch of different teams. So he's going to say, look, let's pick one to be the main point of contact because I'm a busy guy. So that's effectively what's happening. All right, so just look at it like that. But what can you do? That the other team has made a site visit to that vineyard. Does anybody know of any local vineyards here in Brazos County that y'all might visit to find out what they do and what their hummus looks like? There's a couple I know of. So
Just try them all.
So look at what you can do to add to the project. If they're focused on the site, you guys look at some other sites and see what you can learn from them. I loved your Annalie, you probably gave the clearest purpose of what your project is, repurposing the great hummus. I love that you summed it up in one term. And then the way you put it, you're taking a liability, a waste product, and you're turning it into an asset. That's the challenge, and I love that. That's ubiquitous across all production industries. I'm starting to think, my office used to be up there by the food lab where they would fry potato chips and they'd come in and ask me to take them. So I'm envisioning eventually hummus will make it to Dr. Castell's lab and he'll be making stuff out of crackers or maybe popsicles, who knows,
Or potato chips.
Yeah. So let your imagination, it's a little too soon for that because potential solutions comes later. But this is going to be fun, all right? But don't overlook the nearby vineyards. Your presentation styles were all really good. Finally, I wrote down confident. Morgan, solid presence. James, wow, you commanded the room. You were really here. Blaine, you were very professional. Your voice is trailing off a little bit. That's okay. So you need to adopt a presentation voice like the voice I'm using now. If I was talking to Dr. Castell, it would be a little bit lower, like this. This right here. So your presentation voice is a little bit louder. Plus, you have to overcome your mask. And soon we'll all be wearing 2 masks, so you're going to have to work a little harder at it. So let me work backwards. Blaine, I like the fact that you had these cards. I feel like some of the information you had on the cards could have easily made it to the slides. And because it didn't, I think you kind of rambled a little bit. You went for 7 minutes out of the 19 minutes. James, you were 6, but you had 2 goes. Morgan, only 2. You were talking a little fast. And Annalie, you had 4. But it doesn't cost you any money to put that information on the slides. So do that. As a matter of fact, you talked a long time on one slide, Blaine. So, and that slide had 3 bullets. Give each of those bullets their own slide and put some of that information on there to guide your presentation. And when there are difficult words and terms like chemical compounds and stuff, you're gonna have to practice that. And make sure you have the pronunciation right. You can ask your professor, ask your roommate, whatever. Let's see here. Literature review. Annalie, your slides had good content. I don't know what the sources were, though. So it would have been interesting to see where you got that content. Also, didn't see any data. There was a lot of concepts. For example, there's got to be some data out there on the sugar content of grapes. You don't have to be reliable on this lab test for their grapes. There's got to be a range of sugar content and other nutritional data that you can glean from published data. So I felt like it was kind of missing that. If that was my project, I'd be looking for that kind of stuff. Morgan, standards and regulations. This was a little weak. You mentioned organizations like the FDA and the OSHA, but you didn't really tell us what specifically they had to deal with. As a matter of fact, I wrote down one of your quotes. The vineyard is going to need to come to meet OSHA regulations, but you didn't tell us specifically what regulations you're talking about. So if I was a client, I'd be going, look, tell me something I didn't know, okay? Don't just make me go look it up. James, your similar solutions, and Blaine, Blaine had similar solutions. You had other industrial practices. They were kind of similar. I feel like y'all needed to get a little bit repetitive. Otherwise, yeah, good job, good presentation. I know y'all have a tough, maybe a little bit tougher situation regarding your client, but look at the bright side of it. Hey, you guys got the most popular project out of all the class. You know, most of the students, a lot of the students wanted this project. You got it, so make the best of it. Okay? All right.